Racism is defined as the belief that race determines human traits and capacities, which leads to the idea of racial superiority and systemic oppression of a racial group for social, economic, and political gain. Some systems and organizations work to support those who are experiencing racism and fight for equality. My primary stakeholder is Miss Major Alexander L. Lee, TJIJP Black Transcultural Center, a San Francisco-based organization. I will talk about how this organization supports those impacted by racism through their programs and campaign advocacy. Later on in the film, I will discuss specifically how Miss Major Alexander L. Lee, TJIJP Black Transcultural Center, contributes to the fight against racism through their actions. Racism remains a significant issue in San Francisco, but Miss Major Alexander L. Lee, TJIJP Black Transcultural Center provides support to the community to challenge systemic inequality through advocacy, direct services, and programs. How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi discusses how racism isn't about individual hate, but policies and systems that create inequality. According to Kendi, racism is a result of racist policies and ideas that make and normalize inequality due to them either supporting racial equality or inequality. As a result of that, there is no such thing as a neutral position because that's a massive racism. He believes that to be anti-racist, you need to be actively challenging institutions rather than just claiming to not be racist. This relates to Miss Major Alexander L. Lee at TJIJP, Black Transcultural Center, because this organization directly aligns with Kendi's belief about being anti-racist. The center is taking direct action to confront inequality by focusing on fighting policies that harm minority communities instead of choosing to be neutral. They're creating and providing programs that counteract the barriers put into place that prevent people from accessing resources that will help with racism. Skin Tone and Mexicans' Perceptions of Discrimination in New Immigrant Destinations by Helen B. Morrow et al. Describes how Mexican immigrants experience various levels of discrimination based on the color of their skin tone. This relates to Miss Major Alexander L. Lee at TJIJP Black Transcultural Center, who focuses on providing support for those who have experienced colorism. According to Mero et al., dark-skinned Latinos and light-skinned Latinos are treated very differently even though they're from the same ethnic community. An example of this is given by a self-identified dark-skinned indigenous woman, Lucia, who says that she feels a need to be careful in upper-class white spaces due to her being followed around by staff and security guards in higher-end stores. This is a complete contrast to the behavior that our friend, who is also Latina but is white passing, received as she isn't followed around. Miss Major Alexander L. Lee at TJIJP Black Transcultural Center provides resources for those experiencing colorism through their programs, as one of their key values is to dismantle the ladder of oppression by breaking the bottom rung. This means that the center focuses on uplifting those most affected by systemic oppression, the individuals who often experience both racism and colorism within and outside their communities. By addressing these issues, the center works to challenge the structures that contribute to inequality. They advocate to promote unity and empowerment to make sure that those most affected have the resources needed to combat those inequalities. Asian American women's experiences of discrimination and health behaviors during the COVID-19 pandemic, written by Katarina Wang et al., talks about Asians experiencing higher levels of racial discrimination due to the COVID-19 pandemic, which has led to changes in health behaviors and healthcare utilization. According to Wang et al., 70.9% of Asian American women reported at least one or more discriminatory experiences, which is consistent with national studies of increased experiences of racism with Asian Americans. This large number is related to the article's findings that women who experience discrimination are more likely to cancel or reschedule medical appointments. Miss Major Alexander L. Lee at TJIJP Black Transcultural Center has key values that include providing support and resources for those who are impacted by injustice and oppression. The organization is well versed in dealing with situations that involve systemic racism and exclusion. They are acknowledging the fact that individuals face injustice from institutions and are instead providing other methods like community resources, which helps bring back the trust and encourages healing from outside of traditional sources. Measuring intersectional stigma among racially and ethnically diverse transgender women, challenges and opportunities, written by Katie B. Bielo and Jacqueline M. W. Hugo, talks about how transgender women of color face extensive discrimination and racism compared to white transgender women. According to Bielo and Hugo, the color of skin influences public treatment more than sexuality does. Results from a survey conducted show that Black and Latino transgender women felt that their experiences of discrimination can be attributed to both their gender and race/ethnicity alone, compared to white transgender women who only face discrimination for their gender identity. These discriminatory experiences are what caused Miss Major Alexander L. Lee TJIJP Black Transcultural Center to be created. The center's mission is to forge a culture of resistance and resilience by creating a world rooted in freedom of expression and gender justice. They believe in building the voice and power of Black and Brown transgender individuals. The center provides support and resources that allows for Black and Latina transgender women to confront systemic oppression and gain confidence in their own identities. Miss Major Alexander L. Lee at TJIJP Black Transcultural Center believes in fighting for the freedom and liberation of lives with an abolitionist liberation framework. According to their website, the center works in collaboration with others to create a culture of resistance and resilience against human rights abuses, police violence, racism, and societal pressure. They want to create a world rooted in self-determination, freedom of expression, and gender justice. The center accomplishes through the creation of programs and advocacy which allows them to empower minorities, promote healing from systemic oppression, provide resources needed to survive in a society that often excludes them. One of these programs is the Black Trans Leadership Development Program, which supports Black transgender and gender variant individuals through political education and leadership development. The program allows for participants to gain knowledge about government structures, policymaking, and the historical and current issues that impact Black transgender women. Conventions are often hosted to discuss these topics and explore methods to collaborate in supporting new leaders and emerging organizations. Through these conventions, participants create mutually beneficial relationships and strengthen their commitment to making supportive communities for Black transgender people around the globe. Miss Major Alexander L. Lee at TJIJP Black Transcultural Center builds voice, power, and leadership among all individuals, with them primarily focusing on transgender, gender variant, and intersex people, but that is to stop them from creating a united force in the fight against racism and colorism. By honoring the work of previous transgender and historical leaders, the center works to continue that legacy of resistance, which inspires new generations to continue the work of social justice. These efforts are made possible by the center's many programs, which provide support, education, and leadership development for those who need them. A core program made by Miss Major Alexander L. Lee at TJIJP Black Transcultural Center is Black Girls Rules, which allows for the teaching of violence and issues that impact Black transgender women. Although it's primarily targeted towards Black transgender women, these resources are accessible to everyone. Through popular education, everyone is able to come together to critically learn about the systems of oppression, which includes colorism. Conferences are often hosted in order to discuss how the intersection of racism, colorism, transphobia, and systemic violence have impacted the community. These meetings also allow for leaders to come together to allow for new communities and networks to be built, which only empowers those who experiences colorism. According to their website, Miss Major Alexander L. Lee at TJIJP Black Transcultural Center believes in an intersectional analysis of positionality and access to power and voice, horizontal power structure and leadership and governing, and transformative justice frameworking when dealing with conflicts. Through these core values, the center is able to provide support for the community while also addressing systemic inequalities and advocating for social justice across intersecting identities. One way Miss Major Alexander L. Lee at TJIJP Black Transcultural Center is able to support the community is through the Bobby Jean Baker Wellness Department. This department provides a variety of both clinical, therapeutic, and holistic non-Western healing services, which allows for community members who experience racial discrimination in the main healthcare system to have an alternate way of getting treatment. By offering culturally inclusive, trauma-informed healing practices and collaborating with other wellness workers and mental health practitioners, the department demonstrates how healthcare can be given in a respectful and supportive way without any discrimination involved. With this department being community-based through the weekly, monthly, and quarterly events, there is an assurance that this is a safe and welcoming environment where all members can feel like they're getting the help they deserve. Miss Major Alexander L. Lee at TJIJP Black Transcultural Center is passionate about challenging and ending the human rights abuses committed against Black and Brown transgender individuals everywhere. They believe in a world rooted in self-determination, freedom of expression, and gender justice. Through their work, the center is able to empower and support transgender, gender variant, and intersex individuals. They stand firmly by one of their key values of centering lived experiences of Black and Brown transgender women impacted by institutions and systemic oppressions. A key program offered that deals with gender identity is the Reentry and Direct Services Program. This program was launched with the purpose of providing employment to formerly incarcerated Black transgender women. However, as the years have gone on, the program has expanded even further. Now it's able to support all members of the community by educating, strengthening, and empowering the community to live their lives after experiencing oppression through free resources, supporting access to jobs, housing, and healthcare. The program involves a three-step process that allows members to stabilize and develop skills that help them as they transition out of the program and into their own lives. The program's ability to give a structured path allows for empowerment that supports gender identity development and community reintegration. Racism is the belief that racial differences justify the superiority of one group and the systemic oppression of another for social, economic, and political gain, which can be seen in San Francisco today. It influences life in San Francisco, not through isolated acts of hate or personal prejudice, but through systems that influence many aspects of society like education, healthcare, and employment. These structural issues are felt most by minority communities supported by Miss Major Alexander L. Lee, TJIJP Black Transcultural Center, an organization actively working to combat those inequalities. The center strives to build a world where there is no racism and to create a culture of resistance and resilience to continue the fight against current issues today. Through the programs that they provide, they are actively working against the policies and institutions that continue to allow inequality. By identifying these patterns of inequality to their community, they're allowing individuals to question personal beliefs, and systems of power. When people change their perspective of racism, they become more informed, aware, and engaged in participating in actions that push for a change. Miss Major Alexander L. Lee, TJIJP Black Transcultural Center, allows individuals to see the impacts of racism, demonstrating how racism is a current issue and works to support individuals through their advocacy and programs to combat it.